Morning light filtered through steady rain clouds on June 14th, 2017, over the Echo Canyon trailhead in Rocky Mountain National Park. The air registered 48 degrees Fahrenheit at 7:42 a.m., according to the Visitor Center's meteorological log. A woman in a gray windbreaker, later identified as 34-year-old Danielle Hart, signed the trail register in looping handwriting. Solo hike, morning loop. The timestamp 7:44. Rangers noted she purchased a small map and a packet of salted almonds. The receipt, archived at timestamp 7:49, became the final transaction. Nearby, a GPS device blinked faintly on her wrist. Routine recalibration before she left the paved trail. Wind touched the open pines. Nothing about the gesture carried tension. This was habitual movement inside a safe landscape. By 1300 hours, cloud cover sealed the upper ridges. By nightfall, the trail register would become evidence, not itinerary. In early June of 2017, Danielle Hart maintained a strict weekend routine: solo trail runs, hydration planning, and homemade energy bars labeled with each day's date. Her co-worker, environmental analyst Thomas Kerr, noted in a later HR inquiry that Hart had a mathematical mind for time and terrain. Weather records confirmed that barometric pressure dropped slightly across Larimer County that week, signaling unstable conditions, a detail later underlined in the National Park Incident Review. Audio ambient, faint static from ranger radio traffic, the sound of shoes tightening on gravel, her Subaru Outback, license plate retrieved from the June 15 parking log, remained alone by the trailhead past midnight. Inside were receipts from Estes Supply and a partially charged satellite communicator. Nothing indicated distress. What appeared prepared would later read as doomed. The Larimer County Search and Rescue Team was not activated until 16 hours after her expected return time. Weather had deteriorated by then. Low-hanging clouds, reduced visibility to less than 100 meters on the upper slopes. According to the incident commander's first assessment logged at 0600 hours on June 15th, standard protocol indicates high probability of shelter in place due to conditions. Her apartment, inspected on the afternoon of June 15th, revealed a desk calendar with Echo Canyon 6 miles written in blue pen. A stack of topographical maps lay neatly beside her laptop, one corner weighted with a smooth river stone. The browser history showed repeated visits to the National Weather Service and trail condition reports for the Echo Canyon system. She wasn't a risk taker, her supervisor at the Environmental Assessment Office later testified. Danielle calculated variables. She researched extensively. 3 emails sent the previous evening to colleagues discussed an upcoming field project. The final message, timestamped 2241, ended with, "Back Monday with fresh data points." Her backpack, documented in pre-trip photographs shared with her sister, contained standard supplies: 2 liters of water, protein bars, rain shell, first aid kit, headlamp with spare batteries, and an emergency blanket. The satellite communicator, a Garmin InReach purchased 11 months prior, had been tested twice in the preceding week. The cellular data recovered from her provider showed routine message patterns until 7:33 a.m. on June 14th. A final text to her sister Marielle read, "Perfect morning for the North Ridge, back by 4. Reflection: procedure thrives on normalcy. Abnormality is noticed only when patterns end. Unit Delta 7, vehicle still in lot. Ranger dispatch June 16th, 06:31 hours. By 8:15 a.m., another visitor, Geraldine Miles, reported passing a solo female hiker with dark hair, gray shell, mid-slope, near the third marker. The National Park Service recorded this statement 48 hours later. Hart logged no distress calls, though cellular triangulation placed her phone active at grid reference Charlie 75, 76 minutes after her sign-in. Sound data reconstructed. Crunching talus, intermittent bird calls, visual footage reconstructed shows sunlight soft but uneven, wind flattening alpine grass. Field anthropologist Dr. Irene Latham commented later, hikers disappear most often in good weather. Safety creates blindness. By noon, temperature shifts and wind shear increased on the western ridges. Her phone powered off at 15:12 hours. The standard hiking time for the loop trail Hart planned typically ranges between 4 and 6 hours. Park statistics indicate 98% of day hikers return within their stated time frame, with deviations most commonly attributed to minor injuries, weather delays, or navigation errors. At 1600 hours, when Hart had not returned to her vehicle, no immediate alert was triggered. Park protocol classifies solo hikers as potentially delayed until darkness, when designation shifts to overdue. A family of 4 descending the eastern portion of the trail reported to rangers at the visitor center that they had observed a single hiker in a gray jacket moving off-trail toward the ridgeline around 11:30 a.m. This information was recorded but not immediately connected to Hart's file. The weather station at Bear Lake, 6 miles southeast, recorded the first rainfall at 1400 hours, with steady precipitation continuing through the evening. Visibility dropped to less than 400 yards as fog settled into the valley. Ranger Joseph Whitman noted in his evening log, trail conditions deteriorating, all hikers accounted for except solo female gray jacket, Echo Canyon parking permit 0745. This entry was the first documented connection between Hart's vehicle and a potentially missing person. At 2100 hours, Park Protocol transitioned to preliminary search status. 2 rangers with flashlights checked the immediate trailhead vicinity and surrounding parking areas. One ranger recorded, vehicle undisturbed, personal items visible, water bottle, trail guide, no evidence of return and departure. Analysis of weather pattern data later showed that the western slopes experienced wind gusts of up to 40 miles per hour during the afternoon, with temperature dropping to 37 degrees by sundown. Conditions challenging but not immediately life-threatening for properly equipped hikers. Reflection. The trail was mapped, the plan meticulous, yet topography is indifferent to preparation. Signal lost at grid, Charlie 75, search log notation, page 4. On June 15th, Hart's co-worker filed a missing person notification when she failed to appear for Monday's environmental impact briefing. Protocol initiated, check-in at vehicle, initial grid sweep with 2 rangers, aerial reconnaissance at dawn, audio, rotor blades, clipped voices over VHF, terrain condition wet scree, visibility 200 meters. Search Coordinator Lieutenant Ann Dupree reviewed emergency guidelines. First 72 hours to find the field. Between June 15th and 17th, 37 personnel covered 9 square miles. The log lists repeated mention of no scent acquisition from canine units. Each recovered item, energy bar wrapper, map fragment, blue elastic cord, was bagged, labeled, and logged. Family interview, her sister, Marielle, required to identify the handwriting. It's hers. Neat, even under stress. The search expanded through deteriorating conditions. Rain turned to sleet above 8,000 feet. Communication between search teams suffered intermittent failures as portable radio repeaters struggled with the terrain. The incident command post established at the Echo Canyon Ranger Station processed incoming data on transparent overlays. Each team's search grid, marked in different colors, each potential piece of evidence flagged with numbered pins. Topographical features, restricted search patterns, steep ravines required technical rope teams, while dense forest canopy limited aerial observation. We're treating this as a navigation error with weather complications, Lieutenant Dupree informed the assembled team on the morning of June 16th. Focus on natural shelters, drainage culverts, and rock overhangs. By the end of day 2, search protocols shifted to include potential injury scenarios. Medical personnel joined forward teams carrying advanced trauma supplies and evacuation equipment. Statistical analysis conducted by the National Park Service indicates that 78% of hikers reported missing are located within 48 hours. Of those not found in that window, 63% are recovered deceased, most commonly from exposure, trauma, or underlying medical conditions exacerbated by stress. Media coverage remained minimal. One paragraph in the local Estes Park Gazette noted ongoing search efforts for missing hiker. Standard protocol limits public information during active operations to prevent interference from well-meaning volunteers. Hart's employer released her personnel file to investigators, revealing an experienced outdoors woman with wilderness first aid certification and multiple solo expeditions documented in her personal records. Nothing suggested carelessness or risk-taking behavior. On June 17th, at 1300 hours, the search pattern changed again. Lieutenant Dupree consulted historical search data and redirected resources toward areas with cellular signal anomalies, places where triangulation data showed irregular patterns. Sometimes technology leaves breadcrumbs, she told the team during the afternoon briefing. We follow digital traces when physical ones wash away. Reflection, order meets wilderness, procedure confronts nonlinearity. The final page of the trail register, still damp, bore her initials now blurred by humidity, DH. Between 2015 and 2020, Rocky Mountain National Park averaged 32 reported missing hiker incidents annually. 94% resolved within 72 hours. The remaining 6% remain unclosed. Psychologists within Colorado Highway Patrol Field Unit note that prolonged exposure to environmental uncertainty disorients both professionals and families, a state termed comparative trauma. Hart's file cross-referenced with 3 earlier disappearances within a 7-mile diameter: February 2011, August 2014, October 2015. None linked directly, but search grids overlapped in 3 quadrant zones. The search for Danielle Hart entered its 4th day on June 18th with reduced expectations. Statistical probability of survival dropped below 40% according to standardized wilderness search metrics. Rain had obliterated most physical evidence, and helicopter fuel reserves limited flight hours. Search and rescue veteran Michael Torres, who participated in 17 recovery operations over his career, later observed, "After 96 hours, we start looking for explanations rather than people." The psychology of wilderness disappearance presents unique investigative challenges. Dr. Elaine Weaver, consulting forensic psychologist for the National Park Service, noted in her assessment, terrain creates cognitive distortion. Victims make decisions that appear irrational when mapped, but may have seemed logical in the moment. By June 19th, the operation transitioned from active search to evidence collection. Teams methodically photographed, cataloged, and mapped the locations of items potentially connected to Hart, a torn energy bar wrapper matching the brand found in her apartment. a single blue nylon cord, approximately 8 inches in length, with a clean cut at one end. A partial boot print preserved under a rock overhang, matching the tread pattern of Hart's documented footwear. These items created a fragmentary trail extending northwest from her last known position, a direction inconsistent with her planned loop route. Field notes from Team Charlie document an unusual finding on the afternoon of June 19th. Possible temporary shelter formation, bent saplings, and disturbed ground cover indicating human activity. Pattern suggests deliberate construction rather than natural formation. This site, located 2.3 miles from Hart's last known position, was photographed extensively but yielded no definitive evidence linking it to her disappearance. The formation suggested recent human presence, but heavy rainfall had compromised any biological evidence. Family Liaison Officer Carol Winters maintained daily contact with Mariel Hart, who had relocated to a hotel in Estes Park to remain close to the search operation. Psychological support services were offered but declined. The family liaison logged notes. Mariel's increasing focus on maps and statistical probabilities, a common response pattern among relatives with technical backgrounds. She wants data, not comfort, Winters wrote in her June 20th assessment, provides her own topographical analysis each morning. 1 week after Hart's disappearance, the operational footprint reduced to 8 personnel focusing on targeted areas of interest. The command post scaled down to a single trailer. Media coverage had increased slightly but remained factual and limited. Reflection: numbers define scope, not solace. Investigator margin note: possible recurrent terrain pattern. Review historical incident maps. By June 18th, rain intensified. Visibility under 100 meters hindered aerial sweeps. GPS beacons from search teams occasionally overlapped. One entry reads, "Echo lost, 1704 hours. Interference suspected." Environmental variables: avalanche debris, rapid meltwater, thin air, complicated coordination. Family liaison logs show Mariel Hart arriving June 19th, escorted to command tent. She recognized Danielle's car from 10 meters but wasn't permitted closer. Lieutenant Dupree: "We protect the scene even if it's only a vehicle." Infrared imagery failed to distinguish human heat from residual boulder warmth. Sound: wind against helicopter fuselage, muffled radio chatter. The search radius expanded to 14 miles from the last confirmed sighting. Team leaders divided the terrain into alphanumeric grid sections, prioritizing areas based on topographical features, historical rescue data, and computational models of hiker behavior under duress. Statistical modeling from the Center for Wilderness Safety indicates that disoriented hikers typically follow the path of least resistance, moving downhill rather than up, following water courses when visible and seeking clearings that might offer visibility, but these patterns assume normal psychological responses, not injury or intervention. On June 20th, conditions briefly improved. Cloud ceiling lifted to 9,000 feet, allowing helicopter operations to resume. Forward operating base. Charlie, established at high elevation, permitted teams to eliminate vast sections of implausible terrain, areas too steep or exposed for survival. Search dogs working double shifts showed increasing signs of stress. Handler reports note conflicting scent patterns near grid reference Echo 9, where drainage channels create complex air currents. The operation continued to generate documentation: 417 photographs, 82 GPS waypoints, 33 physical evidence markers, and 6 thermal imaging sweeps, each producing data requiring analysis and cross-reference. Evidence without context becomes noise, noted FBI consultant Dr. Raymond Chen, brought in on day 7 to review search patterns. We're looking for human signatures in wilderness chaos. Inside the command post, Lieutenant Dupree maintained the operational timeline, a 60-foot paper scroll documenting every search movement, evidence recovery, and environmental condition change. Red pins marked confirmed sightings, yellow indicated possible evidence locations, and black designated areas fully cleared by search teams. Mariel Hart spent hours studying this map, occasionally identifying terrain features familiar to her sister. "She mentioned this ridgeline last month," she told investigators, pointing to an area 2 miles northwest of Charlie 75. She called it the false summit because it looks like the top but isn't. This information redirected 2 search teams to grid sector Delta 1, previously classified as low priority due to difficult access. The terrain matched no typical lost hiker pattern, moving uphill rather than down, away from water rather than toward it. The team leader's audio, recorded at 1600 hours. Ascending northwest face. Visibility improved. Terrain shows no obvious passage, no trail markers visible. 3 hours later, the same team reported complete sweep of Delta 1 negative, no evidence of human presence, returning to base before darkness. Reflection. Hope narrows as topography expands. Negative return, reported drone Alpha 4 prior to recall. Volunteer teams coordinated through Larimer search and rescue, began unsanctioned searches beyond authorized zones. Ranger reports document conflict over safety perimeter boundaries. At 12:37 on June 20th, a volunteer broadcast over open channel. Found footprint series, possibly female, size 7, pattern consistent with trail runner, coordinates logged near Hermit Basin. Forensic comparison later confirmed sole match. Hart's shoe. Weather turned. Heavy sleet erased the track by evening. Family media appeal recorded June 21st at Estes Courthouse, the sister's voice shaking under flashbulbs. She's prepared. She knows these mountains. The discovery of footprints redirected the official search operation. Teams converged on Hermit Basin, an area 4.2 miles northwest of Hart's last known position, well beyond her planned route, and in terrain classified as advanced difficulty. Field notes from Team Bravo document the area. Basin surrounded by steep walls, limited access points, single game trail showing recent passage, ground moisture high, drainage patterns suggest water accumulation during rainfall. Environmental data indicated that anyone in Hermit Basin during the storms of June 15th through 18th would have experienced hypothermic conditions unless equipped with advanced shelter and insulation. Overnight temperatures dropped to 31 degrees with continuous precipitation. The volunteer who discovered the footprints, Mark Jacobson, an experienced backcountry guide with 14 years of search experience, provided detailed observations. The prints showed a normal gait, not stumbling or injured. Direction of travel northwest, toward the basin wall. Depth and pattern consistent with someone Hart's weight, moving at steady pace. This evidence contradicted standard lost hiker behavior. Moving into Hermit Basin meant ascending rather than descending, entering more remote terrain rather than seeking aid. Lieutenant Dupree noted in her assessment either severe disorientation or purposeful movement for unknown reasons. A technical climbing team assessed the basin walls on June 22nd. Their report concluded, north face shows possible hand and footholds. Could be climbed by experienced person without equipment, but high risk in wet conditions. The operation reached its 10th day on June 24th. Statistical survival probability dropped below 15% according to wilderness medicine protocols. The search command post began transitioning to a recovery operation, focusing on retrieving remains rather than rescuing a living person. Media coverage intensified. Local papers published topographical maps showing search areas. Television stations ran evening segments featuring interviews with other hikers who had encountered Hart on the morning of June 14th. One such witness, Paula Reinhardt, described meeting Hart near the second trail marker. She seemed perfectly oriented, checking her watch against the map. We talked briefly about the weather system moving in. She mentioned planning to complete her hike before the rain. Mariel Hart maintained a daily presence at the command post. Her journal, later submitted as evidence, recorded detailed observations of search patterns, weather conditions, and terrain features. One entry from June 23rd reads, "The terrain doesn't match her planning style. She wouldn't enter Hermit Basin accidentally. Someone or something made her change course." Reflection: in every plea lies data. Tone, composure, exhaustion, each measurable, none conclusive. Search photo evidence line. 2-3. Boot impression overlay, faint but conclusive. Satellite composites on June 22nd revealed a faint heat plume 10 miles north of mapped ridgeline, dismissed as geological venting. Ranger audio, later reviewed, thermal false positive, continue grid. But one rescuer, technician Steve Ramos, logged private notation. Doesn't behave like rock heat. Stationary. The entry was overlooked until forensic re-examination 3 years later. At this stage, official operations downsized. Only 6 field agents remained. Equipment: Radio Pack Model Kenwood 5000, unit call sign Sierra 85. Battery loss reported each night. By the end of June, the search for Danielle Hart had transitioned to limited continuous operation, a designation meaning active field searches would cease, but case data would remain open for new information. All evidence collected was transferred to the National Park Service Investigative Division for archiving and periodic review. The final operational day, June 30th, included a methodical sweep of the immediate trail system by 4 rangers with cadaver dogs. Their logged GPS tracks show complete coverage of all maintained paths within a 6-mile radius of Hart's vehicle. Lieutenant Dupree conducted a final press conference at the Echo Canyon Ranger Station. Media notes record her measured statement. "We have exhausted all reasonable search operations consistent with survival probability. The case remains open, and we continue to request information from anyone who may have observed unusual activity in the area during mid-June." When asked about theories, Dupree maintained protocol. "We deal in evidence, not speculation. Ms. Hart entered the wilderness prepared for day hiking. Environmental factors complicated both her situation and our search capability." The evidence inventory, filed July 2nd, contained 17 items potentially connected to Hart. The partial footprint series near Hermit Basin. 3 energy bar wrappers of matching brand 1 blue cordage fragment. A water bottle cap matching the type found in her vehicle. 12 GPS data points showing possible movement patterns. Mariel Hart returned to her home in Denver on July 5th after 21 days at the search site. Her final statement to rangers, recorded in the case file: "I know she's out there. The mountain just hasn't shown us where." During case review in August, search coordinator Dupree noted an anomaly in the thermal imaging data from June 22nd. The heat signature 10 miles north of the search area, initially classified as geological, appeared in only one sweep and was not present in subsequent imaging. Her notation added to the file: "Possible equipment malfunction or temporary environmental phenomenon insufficient data to warrant additional resource allocation. The case transitioned to cold missing person status in September 2017. All evidence was boxed and transferred to the National Park Service Regional Archives in Denver. Standard procedure required annual review for the first 5 years, then transitioned to historical archive status. Between 2017 and 2020, 6 additional hikers were reported missing in Rocky Mountain National Park. All were located within 72 hours, either through search operations or self-recovery. Statistical analysis showed no geographical correlation with Hart's disappearance. Reflection. Every trail leaves artifacts. Some degrade, some outlast their searchers. File closed preliminary. Unresolved origin of heat signature. On September 3, 2020, 3 years after official case suspension, 2 geology students from the University of Colorado conducting mineral surveys near Glacier Creek reported a makeshift fire ring still warm against heavy frost. Temperature logs verify ambient 31 degrees Fahrenheit, residual heat above standard dissipation curve, within 4 meters. A seated human figure against aspen trunk, skeletal remains in partial upright position. Forensic clocking estimated postmortem interval between 36 and 40 months. Nearby, GPS device, cracked screen frozen on grid Charlie 75. Discovery audio. Jesus Christ, there's hair, and look, the fire's still. The discovery location lay 7.8 miles northwest of Hart's last confirmed position in an area classified as tertiary search zone during the original operation. Terrain features, a shallow depression surrounded by dense aspen grove, had rendered the site invisible to aerial surveys and difficult to access by ground teams. Park Ranger Eliza Montgomery responded to the student's emergency call at 1400 hours. Her initial assessment radioed to dispatch. Possible human remains appears long-term exposure. Site shows evidence of prolonged occupation, fire ring, crude shelter remnants. The FBI Evidence Response Team arrived at 1900 hours. Their preliminary documentation noted an unusual arrangement of materials, the remains positioned in a seated posture against a tree trunk, hands crossed in lap facing the fire ring. The positioning appeared deliberate rather than natural. Lead investigator Special Agent Marcus Holloway noted in his initial report, scene characteristics inconsistent with typical wilderness casualty. Evidence of organized camp structure suggests prolonged presence rather than emergency shelter. The fire ring contained partially burned wood with heat signature indicating ignition within the previous 24 hours, an impossibility given the estimated time of death. Medical examiner Dr. Catherine Zhao conducted preliminary examination at the scene. Her audio notes recorded at 22:15 hours. Subject appears female. Approximate age range 30 to 40 years. Skeletal condition consistent with environmental exposure over multiple seasons. Unusual preservation pattern on lower extremities suggests periodic protection from elements. The GPS device recovered near the remains was identified as matching the model owned by Hart. Despite severe weathering, the device retained power and displayed fixed coordinates matching the location where Hart's phone had last transmitted 3 years earlier. Weather data for the discovery date recorded overnight temperatures of 31 degrees, the first frost of the season. The geology students, Camden Phillips and Teresa Nguyen, had been mapping mineral deposits as part of their graduate research when they discovered the site. Phillips's witness statement, "We smelled wood smoke first, which seemed strange given the temperature, Following the scent, we found the fire ring with embers still glowing. The figure was just sitting there against the tree, partially covered with leaves. By nightfall on September the 3rd, the site was secured with evidence tents and perimeter control. Floodlights illuminated the scene as investigators documented every aspect of the location: soil samples, vegetation patterns, fire residue, and spatial relationships. Special Agent Holloway noted a peculiar arrangement of stones around the perimeter of the site, placed at regular intervals in what appeared to be a deliberate pattern rather than random distribution. Reflection. Discovery grants closure in documents, not in minds. Recovery log entry. Remains match missing person file, RMNP 1709. Post-discovery analysis at Larimer County Coroner's Office revealed subcutaneous micro-lesions and healed wrist abrasions. Absence of predation marks suggested controlled confinement, not environmental demise. Soil disturbance indicated at least 2 set structures: a shoddily built lean-to and shallow pit used for containment. Samples matched trace fibers consistent with weather-resistant tarps sold regionally in 2016, same manufacturer found in 2 unrelated regional abduction cases. During internal case review, specialist forensic analyst Dr. Mia Fallon reported, physical evidence indicates long-term survival post-disappearance, minimum 6 months. Audio underlay, laboratory hum, paper sliding, camera clicks. The forensic investigation expanded beyond standard wilderness missing person protocols. The FBI deployed their behavioral analysis unit to assess the scene characteristics and evidence patterns. Their preliminary report, filed September 10th, categorized the case as suspected criminal detention with ritualistic elements. The human remains underwent extensive examination at the State Forensic Laboratory. DNA comparison confirmed identification as Danielle Hart, though this was already indicated by personal effects recovered at the scene, the GPS device, fragments of clothing matching her last known outfit, and a metal water bottle with her initials engraved on the base. Dr. Zhao's comprehensive autopsy revealed unexpected findings. Subject survived significant period post-disappearance. Evidence of healed fractures to left radius and ulna, consistent with defensive injuries. Additional healed fractures to 3 ribs on right side. Pattern suggests periodic physical trauma followed by survival periods. Microscopic analysis of bone marrow and remaining tissue indicated nutritional deprivation consistent with starvation conditions, interrupted by periodic, adequate feeding, a pattern associated with captivity rather than wilderness survival. Most disturbing were the binding marks. Evidence of prolonged restriction at wrists and ankles with bone remodeling suggesting the restraints were present for months rather than days. Dr. Fallon's supplementary report noted, the pattern of injuries, healing, and restraint marks indicates controlled captivity by a third party, not solo survival or environmental exposure. The fire ring discovered at the scene underwent chemical analysis. Results showed regular burning patterns over multiple years, with the most recent ignition approximately 12 hours before discovery. Accelerant traces matched common lighter fluid available at outdoor supply stores throughout the region. Special Agent Holloway conducted a spatial analysis of the site, comparing it with satellite imagery from 2017 through 2020. His report concluded, the location was selected for specific characteristics: limited visibility from air and ground, natural acoustic dampening from surrounding aspens, proximity to seasonal water source, and difficult access requiring familiarity with unmapped terrain. The containment area, a shallow depression reinforced with cut saplings and covered with tarp material, measured approximately 6 feet by 4 feet, with evidence of drainage channels dug around the perimeter. Tool marks on the cut wood indicated use of a standard hunting knife with a serrated edge. Hair samples recovered from the site underwent microscopic comparison. While most matched Hart's DNA profile, several strands showed different genetic markers, indicating the presence of at least one other individual during the captivity period. Reflection. Wilderness hides captivity, as terrain conceals architecture. Medical chart notation. Healed fractures indicate interaction, not isolation. By re-examining missing person files, investigators drew correlation with prior suspect. Elias Crane, transient survivalist detained in 2015 for illegal trapping near Black Lake, One Valley West. Released early 2016, last sighted near Echo Canyon the same month Hart vanished. Evidence log, partial print lifted from GPS casing, 98% match Crane's archived biometric file. Field note, Agent Dupree. Pattern confirmed. Mountain was hunting ground, not refuge. Recovered at site perimeter, binding cord, animal trap parts, fragment of human hair tied to makeshift hook. Ambient sound, rain hitting evidence tarps, subdued conversation. The investigation expanded to include historical cases with similar patterns. FBI analysts identified 2 previous missing persons with partial overlap in geographical distribution and methodological signature. Marcus Denton, 28, disappeared July 2014 from a trail 6 miles east of Hart's last known position. Case classified presumed environmental fatality after extensive search yielded no results. Rebecca Lynn, 31, vanished October 2015 while photographing wildlife near Black Lake. Limited 3-day search concluded with presumption of accidental drowning, though no remains were recovered. Both cases shared key characteristics with Hart's disappearance. Solo hikers with adequate preparation, vanishing in good weather conditions, last seen in areas where Crane had documented presence. Special Agent Holloway assembled a comprehensive timeline of Crane's movements based on employment records, witness statements, and park entrance logs. The pattern revealed systematic reconnaissance of trailheads and visitor centers throughout 2016, with concentration on areas frequented by solo female hikers. Crane's criminal history showed escalating pattern behavior. 2011, arrested for trespassing at Rocky Mountain National Park after hours, released with warning. 2013, cited for illegal camping and fire risk in protected wilderness area. 2015, detained for animal trapping without permits. Investigation revealed improvised snares on unmapped game trails. Behavioral Analysis Unit assessment described Crane as organized, methodical predator with specialized knowledge of wilderness terrain and tracking techniques. Subject displays, patient hunting behavior rather than opportunistic targeting. The material evidence recovered from Hart's captivity site underwent forensic comparison with items seized during Crane's 2015 detention. Tool mark patterns on cut wood matched a hunting knife documented in his possession. Cordage samples showed identical knotting technique to snares previously attributed to him. Most compelling was the containment structure itself, constructed using the same methodology as animal traps, documented in his earlier case file, but scaled to human dimensions. Surveillance images from outdoor supply stores in Estes Park showed Crane purchasing tarp material, cordage, and lighter fluid matching the chemical signature found at the site. Receipts confirmed these purchases on June 12, 2017, 2 days before Hart's disappearance. The technological connection proved equally damning. Analysis of Hart's GPS device revealed attempted disassembly and tampering, consistent with battery removal to prevent tracking. The partial fingerprint recovered from the casing provided near certain identification of Crane. Reflection. Pathology embedded itself within wilderness, exploiting search pattern assumptions. Interagency communication header, file reclassified, homicide Schmeck, captivity. On October 25, 2020, U.S. Marshals located Elias Crane living beneath an abandoned ski patrol cabin east of Granby. Thermal imaging captured his movement at 0321 hours. Raid sequence recorded muffled shouts, door breach, static breathing. Crane surrendered without resistance. Inside, journals written on inventory paper, times, locations, and observed hikers logged as prospects. Among pages, an entry dated June 15, 2017, gray shell, compliant, smart. Court admit photo evidence displayed 3 GPS units, one belonging to Hart. The arrest operation involved 27 personnel from multiple agencies. Tactical planning began 3 weeks prior, after confirmed sightings placed Crane in Grand County, Colorado. Surveillance teams documented his movement patterns, noting regular returns to the abandoned ski patrol structure. The cabin, constructed in the 1970s and decommissioned in 2006, provided strategic advantages: elevated sight lines, single access point, easily monitored, and proximity to unmaintained trails. Modifications to the structure indicated long-term occupation: reinforced walls, improvised heating system, and perimeter alarms constructed from fishing line and metal cans. U.S. Marshal Kate Reynolds led the operation. Her after-action report stated, "Subject appeared unsurprised by apprehension, displayed calm, almost expectant demeanor during detention. No weapons were brandished, though multiple knives and improvised implements were accessible." The cabin interior revealed methodical organization. Topographical maps covered one wall, marked with colored pins indicating trail systems and isolated areas. A logbook contained detailed observations of visitor patterns at various trailheads, including vehicle descriptions, estimated hiking experience, and notation of solo travelers. Most disturbing were the journals. 14 notebooks filled with detailed entries tracking potential victims. The writing displayed clinical detachment, assessing subjects for suitability based on physical condition, apparent wilderness experience, and isolation from groups. Special Agent Holloway's evidence assessment noted, "The documentation represents years of calculated predatory behavior disguised within normal wilderness activity. Subject maintained detailed records of park visitor patterns, ranger shift schedules, and search response protocols." Among Crane's possessions were 3 GPS devices confirmed stolen from missing hikers, including Hart's. Each had been partially disassembled, with batteries removed and tracking functions disabled. Tool marks on the casings matched implements found in his work area. Additional evidence recovered from the cabin included clothing fragments, matching items worn by Hart and 2 other missing persons, a collection of personal identification documents, including Hart's driver's license, detailed maps marking the containment site where Hart's remains were discovered, journal entries documenting captivity periods, including behavioral observations. During initial questioning, Crane displayed what psychologists termed predatory calm, answering factual questions while avoiding emotional content. When shown photographs of the captivity site, he reportedly stated, "The structure was inadequate for winter conditions. improvements were planned. Behavioral analysts noted his language patterns contained geographic possessiveness, referring to wilderness areas as my territory and to victims as inhabitants rather than people. Reflection, capture marks procedural success, not emotional resolution. Subject in custody, transmission ends with background wind. Federal indictment hearing convened January 12th, 2021, Denver District Court. Transcript excerpt records Judge Myers stating, the pattern of abduction was opportunistic, masked as environmental accident. Crane's demeanor measured unemotional. Forensic psychologists diagnosed dissociative personality disorder with adaptive isolation traits. During testimony, Mariel Hart remained silent, permitted to submit written statement only. Excerpt. I hope no family has to wait longer than the mountain's patience. Ambient. Courthouse ventilation, distant traffic hum. Procedural reforms followed. New interagency alert for remote disappearances, codified under Rocky Act Protocol Series Alpha 9. The prosecution presented 7,300 pages of evidence, including complete forensic analysis of the captivity site, Crane's journals, and medical examination of Hart's remains. FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Sarah Chen testified to the methodical nature of Crane's predation. The subject displayed extraordinary patience, sometimes observing potential victims for months before selecting them. The wilderness setting was not incidental but essential to his methodology. Park Service protocol underwent significant revision following the case. New regulations required enhanced monitoring of solo hikers, including voluntary GPS tracking options and automated return time alerts. Lieutenant Dupree, who led the original search operation, attended each day of the proceedings. Her testimony included recognition of the overlooked thermal anomaly that might have indicated the captivity location 3 years earlier. Even the best protocols can miss critical data when filtered through wilderness assumptions. Reflection. Justice systems formalize trauma. They cannot translate it. Transcript line. Sentence life without parole, federal custody. By summer 2022, trail registers at Echo Canyon were replaced with laminated versions resistant to moisture and tampering. At the bottom of the new ledger, visitors encounter a line printed in gray. Sign in, sign out. Every name becomes record. Family placed a small brass plaque at the initial trail marker. Simple engraving. For Danielle. The mountain remembers accurately. Aerial footage at dusk, same slope, same light angle as first seen, but no figures moving. Sound fades to ambient wind and a distant bird call. The case transformed wilderness safety protocols across the national park system. Periodic signals from designated checkpoints became standard procedure for solo hikers. Thermal imaging technology, previously used primarily for wildfire detection, was integrated into standard search operations. Statistical analysis revealed uncomfortable truths. Between 2010 and 2020, an estimated 11% of environmental fatality classifications in western wilderness areas may have involved foul play rather than accident or exposure. Dr. Raymond Chen, who consulted on the original search, later developed the HART protocol, a systematic review process for cold missing persons cases involving wilderness disappearances. The methodology has since identified 7 additional cases with potential predatory elements previously overlooked. On the anniversary of Hart's disappearance, her sister Mariel returned to Echo Canyon. Park records show her signature in the new trail register, time-stamped 7:44 a.m., exactly matching Danielle's final recorded start time. She hiked the same loop, carried the same model GPS unit, and returned safely by afternoon. Final narrator reflection. Routine endures. Hikers still calibrate GPS units, tighten shoelaces, adjust windbreakers. The procedure continues, indifferent, precise. At closing frame, camera pans across the trail register. Hart's signature faint beneath fresh entries. The paper, though replaced, still bears an invisible indentation beneath the surface.